Elizabeth is another amazing lady. We seem to be, today is all about amazing ladies, really. So us, you know, kind of alpha males just need to get out of the way. Elizabeth is one of those. Elizabeth started DrugFam some years ago, and she will tell you a bit about that, and a bit about her and why. And I just want to say, Elizabeth, it was really good to host the play here recently. We held one night here, but Sue Pryor, who's sitting at the back there as well, manages something called Nomad in Henley, which is a youth and community and family project. And the play, Mum Can You Lend Me 20 Quid, was hosted 7 times in Henley, twice at the college, twice at the school, and 3 times here, once for dignitaries, once for the commoners, and once for the recovery lot as well. But about 750, 800 people in total saw that play, and it was an amazing week, and I think it's changed something of the atmosphere in Henley, and we hope today will add to that. So please welcome Elizabeth.
Okay, so my name is Elizabeth Burton Phillips, and I'm a mum in recovery, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about my personal journey, and a little bit about my passion for families in recovery. Everybody hear me okay? Yeah. So, a little bit about who I am. I've been asking myself that a little bit recently. Sort of reflecting on my life. One of our trustees died very suddenly at the age of 47 a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of really blew me. So I thought, that's just so wrong for somebody to die so young. And I started to ask myself, who am I? And I thought, well, I'm a retired teacher. And I thought, what a rotten bugger I was when I was a teacher. I was involved with getting kids through GCSEs and A-levels, marking exam papers and so on. And I've finished with all that now. I live in Twyford down the road in Berkshire. I'm a mum, I'm a wife, and I'm a grandmother. And I'm really proud to be an OAP, because you get a free bus pass. And you get free prescriptions, you get free drugs when you're in a It's really good. And you get cheap eye tests and all sorts of things, so I love it. And I've unwittingly become a voice for families seeking recovery, and in recovery since 2004. And I have a story of loss to share with you, but I've got a massive story of recovery, which is so, so important. But I'd like to just contemplate why it is that families need to find recovery. Addicts, with the greatest respect to all of you, often see their addiction as only hurting themselves. And yet we know, Neil, I hope I'm not wrong here, that there are about 1.8 million drug addicts in the UK. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And actually the number of people directly affected is a lot more. The ripple effect on the family is huge. And some of the ways in which drugs can harm families are the breakdown of family trust, the isolation and the breaking of bonds, and the confused relationships because family members take on different roles to compensate for the drug addict. And sometimes drug addicts' behaviours create an environment that's unstable and difficult to live in. And we know that drug addicts can divide families, and they often get us into financial difficulties. And it's all born out of love, because we care for them, and we love them, and we want to make them well. So what's this got to do with me? Well, my story began in 1976, and it finished in 2004. And when I first began to talk about it, and to go public with it was my story, but it isn't my story, it's a universal story. I'd just like to share a little bit of that with you. It's a brief snapshot into my life. Buy one, get one free. You go to a hospital to have a baby, and you come out with 2. And no guy in the antenatal, whatever you go, you know, the bit where they do the gel, nobody picks up 2 heartbeats. So when I come home with 2 babies, having promised, identical twin boys, having promised my daughter a sister, you know, and people think you're so stupid when you walk down the road and you've got twins in the pram, and they said, but why didn't you know? But I didn't, I genuinely didn't. But it was great. I had a lovely life. I love that black and white picture because my son Nick, on the right there, he got his head stuck in the baby chair, and his first day at nursery, and the fire brigade had to come and cut him out. So it's, you know, treasured photographs that you like to keep. 3 happy children. They love being twins, and I love dressing them the same, to the point where I couldn't even tell them myself. You know, sometimes it was the voice that almost gave it away. And they did really well at school, getting identical GCSEs, but I will get them free again. But life was good. My daughter did really well. She studied hard. She went on to Oxford. She became a lawyer. We had really normal, happy family occasions, 21st birthday parties, 18th birthday parties, and so on. Actually, the picture of the 21st birthday party, the lady there passing the cards over, is the nursery nurse that had Nick stuck in the chair and had to call the fire brigade. So she's really special in our lives today. And interestingly, when she got married, she had twins. So that's, you know, really spooky, nice. But actually, in our family, cigarettes became the gateway drug. At the time, we didn't realise it. But you can see pictures of the twins there around about the age of 13. You know, they started the odd smoke with friends, a bit cool, a bit of peer pressure. But they did become the gateway drug because this monster came into our family. This monster cannabis came into our family. And our family of 5, Mum, Dad, Simon, Nick and Susie, we became 6 because very soon we were caught in a world of addiction that we didn't know how to manage, how to deal with. We didn't understand it. And when I wrote my book, Mum, Can You Lend Me 20 quid, What Drugs Did to My Family, a lady from America sent me this piece of writing. She said she'd read it on the plane, she'd read the book on the plane, and she wanted to share this with me because her son, who died, had written it. I just want to read it to you. It says, I am more powerful than the combined armies of the world, and I've destroyed more people than the wars of a nation, and I've caused millions of accidents and wrecked more homes than all floods and tornadoes and hurricanes put together. I am the world's slickest thief. I steal billions of dollars each year, and I find my victims amongst the rich and the poor alike, the young and the old, the strong and the weak. And I loom up to such proportions that I cast a shadow over every field of labour. I am relentless, insidious, and unpredictable. I'm everywhere. I'm in the home, on the street, in the factory, in the office, on the sea, and in the air. I bring sickness, and I bring poverty, and I bring death, and I give nothing, and I take all, and I am your worst enemy. I am addiction. Isn't it true? Oh, it's so true. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs. When she sent it to me, it was just like, wow, that's my life as a mother. Simon's going to talk to you just for a few minutes. It's just my son.
It's something I know that it stems back to when I was 14 or 15 years of age and experimenting with cannabis that ultimately put my head state into a decision that allowed me to say yes to heroin. What I mean by that is it gave me the attitude of I'll try anything once, you know, a bit lazy, a little bit relaxed, that kind of thing. Thinking at the time, and I remember it very vividly, you know, I would never be stupid enough to ever touch heroin. But ultimately I did, and this happened. There used to be a group of 20 or 30 of us that went down to a local pub like you do when you're 18 years of age, all your friends meet up, it's all a new thing to you. And you know, you go out and you get drunk for a Friday and Saturday night and watch the football and, you know, genuinely enjoy yourself, play pool and things like that, normal, everyday things that kids do, you know, and young adults do. And after a few months of doing that and, you know, this group becoming really solid and really together and just thoroughly enjoying ourselves every weekend, yeah, a new friend got introduced to us. And like you do at the time, being 18 years of age and a bit naive and, you know, and obviously friendly, my motto is it's nice to be nice. We obviously accepted him into our group of friends and, you know, got drunk with him every Friday and Saturday and stuff like everybody out there does, you know, not thinking that there was any agenda behind this person. Basically, for a couple of months, we just got drunk with him, enjoyed ourselves and played pool and thought he was the nicest bloke in the world. And during that time, we used to go and smoke spliffs in the cars, just smoke joints of weed and stuff. So we'd go and have a few pints and then nip outside and smoke a spliff, and then go back in the pub. And basically, it was all just, you know, just a laugh. Then one day, a couple of months into knowing this new person, we went into a car with 4 or 5 friends. We're all smoking some weed, and a joint of heroin was being passed around, and it got passed both my brother and myself. And obviously we were intrigued. We're like, you know, why can't I have a go? Give me a go. Why have you passed it straight to him? Kind of thing. And when they turned around at the time and said, oh no, you wouldn't want any of this, you know what I mean? Which made me and Nick even more intrigued, because we've got this, you know, this is where I talked about earlier, the stem back to that hot head state, is I'll try anything once. And I never even thought that you could smoke heroin through a spliff. So anyway, it was told, this is heroin, oh, you don't want to try any of this. And we're like, well, surely if it's only a couple of drags on a joint, then I'll give it a go, kind of thing. So you did, and to be honest, the effects weren't very strong. It's not like you sat there and you went, wow, out of my head or anything like that. It was just like a strong weed spliff. But it was nice. And the point is, you wanted to do it more. Not necessarily that day, or necessarily the next day, but gradually over the next 3 or 4 months, we were replacing our weed spliffs with heroin spliffs, and we'd go to the pub still act normally, still go to work, you know, things like that, still live a normal life, but gradually it was creeping up on us and starting to overtake our lives, and we didn't know it at the time until we went to stop. Little did we know that this so-called friend had deliberately introduced us into a life of complete hell, disruption and chaos, and an addiction that is just incredibly difficult to kick. I have to point out to you that it wasn't just me and my brother that made the foolish decision to say yes and smoke that spliff. In fact, out of the 25 of us that were all drinking and all left school together and all were best of mates, half of us became heroin addicts, of which still 5, I don't keep in touch with everyone now, but I know that at least 5 of them are still heroin addicts 10 years later, and have gone to the stages, at the extremes of giving birth to heroin babies, you know, robbing their parents, very, very many nasty things that you would not have predicted them to do. And ultimately, my point to you is that this all stems from saying yes in the first place to cannabis, so it's all a gradual step up, and then suddenly, before you know it, to step back down again is nearly impossible.
We use that quite a lot when we work in schools, because it gets kids asking questions like grooming and what's a heroin baby, and who your friends really are that would entice you into trying something like that. I'm not excusing my sons, they chose that route, but it's a really important message, particularly the alcohol message, you know, in the pub list, and what you can do, that kind of thing, as a result of your inhibitions being low. From that minute that the boys smoked their first heroin spliff, their lives started to be controlled by bags of gear. That's Nicholas's hand, the little lad who got his head stuck in the chair, with his bags of gear in his hand. And the reason I've got all these photographs is because I took pictures of what happened, because I'm just a mum and a grandmother who likes pictures, but I wanted evidence. Because I thought I can be, at the time I thought I was the only mother in the world that was going through this, and I wanted evidence of what it was doing to us. When both your sons, or one of your sons, turns around and says to you, Mum, I'm addicted to heroin, I'm a pinhead, how do you feel? What do you say? I was really shocked, and I couldn't believe it. And I was really confused, and I felt guilty. I felt it was my fault. I felt that I hadn't been quick enough to pick up signs, because I didn't know what the signs were. And then I became full of mistrust. And then I thought about the stigma, and I thought about my school where I worked, and the headmaster, and the board of governors, and the pupils, and the parents, and how was I going to go in and say to my colleagues in the staff room, I've got twin sons on heroin. I couldn't do it. I was so embarrassed, and I was really full of shame. And it was really difficult for me, because where do you get any help when you're a family member? It was a few years ago, and I know there's a lot more help available. I'll talk about that in a moment, but how can you speak to anybody about it? It's so hard. I could have gone in and said, my mum's got breast cancer, my father's gone loopy with Alzheimer's, or whatever, or I've got leukemia. It's so difficult. And so the more stigmatised you feel, the less likely you are to seek support. And it's not just about the addict. Look at all those people in that cycle. They're the mums, the dads, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, grandparents and siblings, and godparents and in-laws and cousins. All those people in that cycle are affected. And you try to keep it secret from some, and you share it with others. And somebody's got one view and somebody else has got another view, and it's really difficult. But you know, early in their heroin use, everything appeared normal to me in the outside world. I had no idea what signs were, what to look for. And I believed in my heart that teachers' families don't have problems with drugs, because we're better than everybody else. What a load of bollocks. We had no idea of what lay ahead. The boys found themselves battling with a chronic relapsing illness and a brain disorder. I had no idea of the impact that it was about on my family. And what happened was the boys' opioid addiction became our family illness. And as a mum, I genuinely wanted to help them. That's what mums do. They get out there and they help them and they make it better. They fix it. The dads come along and the other people's come along and they help. They help and they put it right. That's what I thought you could do and I could do. But I couldn't. Because this slowly unfolding tragedy of seeing your children, in my case both of them, going through this stage of drug abuse and addiction, was beyond me. I was helpless. I was desperately trying to pay off drug dealers, so was my husband, etc., etc. By this stage, they'd gone from smoking it to chasing the drug and to sticking it in their arms, and changed as people. Simon, who you just seen on the video, that's what he looked like. These pictures were taken in Wokingham. And it was just heartbreak to see this going on, and just not knowing how to fix it with a plaster or go to the chemist to get a box of paracetamol and say, make it well, make it go away. And personalities changed because they had a relationship with drugs that was more important than their relationship with us. And it led them into thieving and lying and cheating and getting petty criminal behaviour profiles with the police. Where have my sons gone? They slept rough because they couldn't sleep at home because they stole from us. And they became petty dealers because the dealer up the chain in Reading said, look, I'll give you a mobile phone to sell drugs, and you can have your fix, and that means you don't have to go and steal from Sainsbury's or wherever to get your fix the next day. So homelessness, desperation and worry controlled their lives, and desperation and worry controlled our lives. And they did everything through good times and bad times as twins. They had some wonderful times. But they were always on the phone to the dealer. And this picture of Marks and Spencer's car park in Wokingham, Wokingham, the leafy suburbs, second nicest place to live in the country, where people say they don't have jobs. And in Windsor, by the way, a really nice lady with twin second pearls said to me once when we spoke ages ago, when we first shared our story, Elizabeth, I'm so sorry about your story, but don't worry, because in Windsor and Maidenhead, We don't have a problem with drugs because the Queen lives here. Get it? But in the grip of addiction, my sons became completely unrecognisable, as you can see. That's what it did to them, and it's so painful to watch this happening, not just to one, but to two. There was Nicholas before, on course to go to university, and that's what happened to him, how he changed. Really difficult. And then my husband, oh my God, dealing with working with the twins. He was so angry because he was paying off drug dealers. He lost his savings, he couldn't retire. The loss of trust, he was so angry what the boys had done. And he knew how many men are expected to man up and deal with it. And inside they're broken, absolutely broken. But he did it all because he loved me. And thank God we're still together. He's probably a git, but you know, I love him to bits. But you know, the penny sometimes drops, and it did drop with me. And I realised that all this love, all this money, and me putting them into rehabs, it's not working. Because I realised that I couldn't conquer their addiction and save my sons. They had to do it for themselves. It took me a long, long time to realise that. And that they just wanted to totally commit for that recovery for themselves, not for me, but for them. And then we could come in and give them all that support. It didn't work really well because there wasn't much aftercare at the time, but it's important that they work with those who can help them achieve it, the drug workers and the rehabs and so on, and you've got to want it. We had a bit of an interesting experience of the treatment journey because we came across phrases like blocking and detox and methadone and Subutex and naltrexone, words we hadn't been familiar with before, and rehab and private clinics and financial costs and applying for this and so on. But actually, in truth, it was the marital costs and the broken lives that were equally destroyed, not just the addict. And cycling through treatment, one day I had this really good idea. I know, let's put Simon and Nicholas in a private clinic. Let's spend £11,000 on putting in the Florence Nightingale. Hey, he came out with a certificate, look how great he looked. And I thought he was cured. We looked for a magic cure. We wanted Nick to become from this to this, because we didn't understand at that time that disease is a really serious addiction. And during this journey, their paths as twins took different routes. Simon got well, and then Nicholas pulled him back into it. But that particular photograph just shows you those identical twins were no longer identical. Really sad to see that. Nicholas, was half the body weight of his brother when we tried to get him into a rehab. But I learnt about tough love, and I learnt with great heartache about letting go, and about the importance of them working with the drug worker, them working with the chemist. At that time they had a 4-way program, I don't know if that still exists, but they collected their Subutex from the chemist on a daily basis, and I think they had to check in with their drug worker and the doctor and so on. It was called a 4-way agreement. And we tracked them 1 month on Subutex, 2 months and so on. 3 months, beginning to see some real evidence of change. Physically, it looked good, it looked positive. Really began to lead that journey of recovery. But we didn't know, we had no idea that behind all of that, there were relapses going on, because they were hiding it from us. They didn't want us to know. They didn't want us to know that they were having those struggles. And they were continuing to use Subutex in their recovery journey, but they were using their gyros to take heroin. And then life changed. 10 years ago, life changed completely for us. In February 2004, we had this knock on the door. And the message was this: I'm sorry, Elizabeth, but your son Nick is dead. What do? You know, you've got a son that's alive, you've got all this grief and this relief. It's really difficult to embrace it, understand it. They'd gone out to a party, they'd got pissed, they'd taken drugs, and Nicholas found himself in desperation, and his brother found him dead. And I just remember sitting down saying he knew that I loved him right up to the end. And I did. But he was gone. That was the last photograph of him before he died. Such a tragic waste of a life. But it really hacks me off that the newspapers had to put that in the paper, intruding into our coroner's court thing. Why did they have to do that? We have a lot of people telling us those stories. You know, it's enough pain to go through this without blooming newspapers reporting on it as well. Nick's death certificate, when we went to the coroner's court, he said, there's a guy called Peter Bedford, who's still the coroner today, a really nice guy, he said, you know, drinking drugs had impaired his judgment that night. He was full of, toxicology said he was full of heroin, crack cocaine and alcohol, but there wasn't actually any proof that he wanted to kill himself because there was no premeditated evidence of a letter. And he said, I'm going to record an open verdict, even though it says hanging on the death certificate. And he said to me, Elizabeth, I know you're a teacher, he said, but if you ever get to speak about this, tell young people that the best work experience they can have is sat next to me. That'll put them off taking drugs for good. The drug dealer in Reading, he said that he didn't give a damn that Nick was dead because Nick owed him money. So we hold on to memories, and that was a nice picture I've got at the time when they were doing quite well. And in 2004, when I first began to speak about my story, I said, Simon survived the opioid journey. Drugs and alcohol are equal opportunities killers. That box of needles was next to Nick's body, that was the legacy he left us, and that's the stone. And in 2004, that was it, that was the end. But it's 2014 now, and it's 10 years on. And I'm standing here, and I'm an old age pensioner. And it's great. So what does recovery mean? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for the families that I'm so passionate about? I've just had to turn negative into a positive. That's been my recovery. I want to be a dignified voice for families, and I want to support them until I go out in my coffin. And what I did was I wrote this book, and it was completely therapeutic. I woke up one night, 6 months after Nicholas had died, and I woke Simon up. We happened to be in America, staying at a friend's house. He said, come away. And I woke him up. I said, I'm going to write a book. I need to do this. And Simon said, Mum, if you're going to do that, you need to know what's happening on my side, what on our side. So we worked together, and out came Mum, can you lend me 20 quid in paperback, in hardback, and then in paperback. It's now in 6 languages. It's just recently been translated into Polish. It was therapeutically really, really helpful to write it down with perfect memory. It so helped me. It felt like an exorcism of the shit that we've gone through. I'm sorry about that. And then this man came into my life. This is what I call the Roy Cropper of my dreams. If you watch Coronation Street, Roy Cropper. He emailed me and he said, hi, my name's Mike Howell. He said, and I'm a playwright and an actor. And he said, would you mind working with me to translate your book into a play, a piece of theatre and education? And to be honest, I thought he was off his head on drugs. I really did, because I thought, how can you turn this painful story into something of any value? My God, did he do it? We worked together. He turns up with his little plastic bag, you know, just like Roy Cropper, and he's such an amazing man. I love him to bits. And in 2012, we took this play, this stage adaptation, this theatre and education play, into Peterborough Prison and into Wellington College and into the Citadel Arts Centre. 3 completely diverse areas. You know, posh public school, a prison, and an arts centre where members of the public can go. And to date, That play has been performed 64 times across the UK, in schools, prisons, communities, and I'm privileged it was here. It's even gone to the Home Office. Next year it goes to Westminster. There we go. That's who is saying Bottles. And he hosted it here, as I said, a few weeks ago, and just a crew. There's Sue. There she is at the back, and Bottles, and the actors. And you know what, the guy with the long hair? He is such a bloody good drug dealer. He's so good. He's an actor, but he is really good. But that whole team are really, really dedicated. You know, going around performing with the energy that you guys saw that play, so, so demanding. One of the interesting things was, or is, that the director of the play chose heroin to be cast as a character. And this, those of you who saw it, is a wonderful professional dancer called Sophie Tickle, fancy her name, Sophie Tickle, who played that seductive, chronic relapsing brain disorder, driving all the time that person to stick the needle in the arm. We have 3 casts now, it's so busy. And some of these pictures by the actors, you can see the broken faces of the family borne out in the beautiful acting that goes on. And then we took it into a rehab. This was early on, and one of the women wrote to me and she said, I felt very touched and it was a privilege to be there. The play was deeply moving, harrowing, bittersweet, and so very, very real. I was the addict. I felt the pain, the desperation, and the absolute squalor we descend to in our outer world, but more so inside ourselves, the soul. What moves me more is seeing, and due to the play, truly feeling what I put my mum and my family through. Because during addiction, every thought and feeling is overtaken by the power of drugs, and they hold the hold they have on the addict. We took it into Ellesmere Prison this year. That was really interesting because to see those 18 to 24-year-olds in that prison, many, many of them in there for drug-related, alcohol-related offences. And the Deputy Governor said, I had the great privilege of being in the audience to view a production of the play, Mum, Can You Lend Me 20 Quid? It was played to a number of young prisoners, staff and visitors at HMP Aylesbury. The production itself was of the highest quality, and I commend, obviously, not myself, but that team, and was a credit to the cast and the production team, based on the book written by Elizabeth. This is one of the most powerful, thought-provoking productions I have staged in a prison setting, and this one play was able to deliver a hard-hitting message to all, which I have no doubt would have caused many to reconsider their decisions, their life decisions. I truly hope that this production is given a chance to play to a wider audience in the future, and others in the criminal justice system are able to give support and credence to such endeavours. But it's not my endeavour, it's theirs, it's their dedication and their commitment, and I honour them for what they're doing to support me. When we took it to the Home Office, there was had loads of really important people there, one being the Chief Inspector of the Police in Hampshire, who commissioned the podcast version of the play. The actors actually did 7 performances here and then went up one night and did the whole podcast version, so they worked so hard. That's been released this Friday with 2 performances of the play by Hampshire Constabulary, and it means people who can't read very well can listen to it, download it, hear it on phones and all the other gadgets that we've got, so it's an amazing achievement for them as well. Now, my second journey into recovery was I wanted to do something to honour Nick's memory, but also to help families, because we knew that we hadn't got the qualifications or the skills to work with addicts. We just got life's experience, so we thought, let's set up something, and this is how DrugFam was born a couple of years after Nick died, offering weekly support groups, 6 days a week, telephone, Skype and email support. signposting to professional counselling, befriending and life coaching. And we do a lot of education work in schools and prisons. And we do a lot of bereavement support. We have an annual Grief by Addiction conference. And just in picking up what you were talking about with legal highs, we have a team that visit people who are bereaved. And yesterday we visited a lady in Aylesbury who lost her partner. He died in front of her as a result of taking a legal high. And it was, you know, a privilege to go there and be with her. We don't go there as counsellors, we go there as people who live the journey and to listen to the grief and then to ask her, what can we do to help her? Would she like therapy? We can signpost her. What can we offer her to support? But, you know, to see your husband, your partner down in front of you, it's tragic. We have a database of 1,200 now, I think it is, of families who've been to us, come to us since Nicholas died, or since the charity was set up. So evidence. Why do families need recovery? 10 years on from my son's death, my email box fills daily with stories from families across every social, religious and cultural background, from families living on the poorest estates to those living in the finest homes in the land and everywhere in between. Such families tell myself and the staff and volunteers at DrugFam that they're living in fear, on a knife's edge. Addiction knows no boundaries, as that poem says, between the rich and the poor, the strong and the weak, the young and the old. Children, brothers and sisters, they've written to me and they've told me that they're going without so their parents can have their heroin fix every day. Brothers and sisters tell me of their heartbreak, how it's a battle not to give up on the heroin addicts in the family, as they think about how many more years do they put up with it before they lose who they are and how many years have been lost already for them. And one child simply told me, it feels like evil lives in my house. Mums and dads, several mothers have told us that they know the dealer that supplied their son and daughter that lethal heroin dose that finally took their lives. And one grieving dad wrote, I lost my beautiful daughter to suicide. People ask me how did we, and how do we find the strength to carry on? The answer is of course simple. What other choice do we have? What other choice do we have? We have to find an inner strength we never knew that we had. The other choice is just to lie down and let it beat you. And a mother who lost her son wrote to me, my son died in 2010. His death was classified as an accidental death due to mixing opioids and alcohol. He was 22 and my only child. My husband also lost his son 2 weeks after we were married. He died in prison due to dehydration whilst detoxing from heroin. It has been a most painful acceptance for both of us, and the pain does not cease. My son once told me that buying heroin is as easy as going into a sweet shop to buy a can of Coke. And this shocked me the most. Thank you for going public with your story. I can only empathise and grieve with all of those who have lost a precious child. We live from day to day, waiting for the knock on the door you had. Both my son and his partner were born on heroin when the babies were on heroin when the babies were born. Our beautiful grandchildren are now aged 2 and 4. Had a very rough start in life, being born as addicts, and to hear their high-pitched cries in the special care baby unit was heart-wrenching. How can we ever make people fully understand what the families go through? And finally, this one, pension. My son's heroin addiction left him comatose in a doorway. His life was saved, but he suffered brain damage and is completely unable to look after himself, so I took care of him and cared for him. Over the years, his addiction and subsequent coma meant he lost the ability to speak. His nervous system was shot to pieces. My son is 59, and I am 92, and I do my utmost to care for him, even though he technically died many years ago. Where do we have our support groups that support these people? Here, in this very building, 2 weeks ago, we launched one here. We're in Caversham, in Reading, we're in Woking, we're in Slough, we're in London, Harley Street, partial, what? But somebody who is in recovery from cocaine addiction, who's very wealthy, has given us a room as a gift in Holly Street. And you know that group, it's full of families whose partners are on crystal meths. It's shocking, the pain that the families are going through. We're in Chesham, in Bucks, we're in Holcombe, and we've opened our first group in the north, in Prescott, and that's Mr. Roy Cropper has done that for us, the actor, Michael Howe. He's opened the first group there. And we've got groups to come in Oxford, in Luton, in Lancaster, in Rainhill, in Blackpool and Peterborough. We're growing big time. Isn't it sad? The need is so high. We do a lot of work in prisons. We take the play in prisons. I think we've done 32 prisons so far. I've been through so many experiences in search for drugs. I'm thinking, what? Me, an old age pensioner, in search for drugs, but you have to go through these procedures. They've even got, in one prison, a seat that you have to sit on where they take a picture of certain parts of your body to see where you hide drugs. Can you believe that? It's not very nice. Anyway, we had a competition because we wanted to hear from the offenders actually what's drug addiction, what's alcohol addiction done to you and your family. Tell us in any way you can what addiction has done. We had, across the UK, 220 entries, and we had Maureen Lipman, Jenny Murray, and Anthony Selden were the judges. There they are. And some really posh art gallery called the Stephen Freeman Gallery in Mayfair said, yes, use our gallery. We'd like to support you. And did they have a tough time choosing the winner? I just want to show you what came out of that. This is what families suffer. This was the winner, the national winner. I'm sorry the picture's not larger. He called it Selfish Drug Addicts. He's in HMV Whitemore. And he wrote about why the colour purple was so important and why the pictures of the mum and dad were pasty and the little baby in the cot, desperate for some attention, desperate for some milk. And it was really moving to read what he'd written. And at the end he said, I was that baby in the cot. He was born into it, and there he was, all those years later, in prison. This is second place from HMP Edinburgh. It's called Lisa, your baby's being taken from you. There's a little baby on the floor, and a policeman coming in, and the drugs on the floor. Who's going to look after that baby? And then we had some highly connected. We had a guy who really liked working with woodwork, and he did a jigsaw puzzle. Life or drugs, it's your choice. This man wrote, I've just brought shame into my whole family, and here I am, I'm chained in, lost my liberty. This is my favourite personally. It's a pencil sketch, and it's just, freedom's gone, and I've lost my family. This lady wrote about seeing her husband on alcohol, beat her children, and how she eventually ended up in prison herself. I can't discuss more. This one I've taken with me on some of the talks that I've done because the person who drew it said, this is the monster that I put in my family's head. This is what they're dealing with. It's not just a monster in my head. I put it through. Despite losing his twin brother, despite the family being completely in a mess, we found recovery, and life for us is normal. Every time we take the play or go anywhere with our story, people who are so desperate for recovery want that, and we support it entirely. We're here, I'm standing here today to support addiction, the addicts in recovery, and to support the family finding recovery. Do you know what? She rang me up about 2 years ago, and she said, my name's Samantha Cameron, and I said, yeah, right, my name's Cheryl Cole. And she said, I've heard about DrugFam, and I'd like to invite you to Downing Street. And I said, yeah, right. Really? I didn't say, yeah, right. But she did, and she said, I'd like you to come. And she had a reason. She had a reason for it, because she knew it, because David Cameron's sister was a heroin addict, and she had a whole load of us. Sally was there, Sheila was there, some more of you may have been there. And it was amazing, so humbling to go to Downing Street. Proper posh, it really is. Ladies' toilets could do a little bit of decorating, but very nice. Do you know, that's recovery. How come my son and I standing outside number 10 Downing Street, you look like that? Recovery is great, it happens. When death occurs, we know we have to fight, we have to carry on. We have to be happy, find happiness, find a future. There's my grumpy old git. He really went through the mill. And he stood by me, enabling my sons, paying off drug dealers. But, you know, he's a great guy. But fancy that. That was amazing. It was an opportunity for me to say thank you to all those volunteers like Sheila and all the other people that go out week after week after week to the support groups and help these families that so need our help. There are other people here. I'm not going to identify them because I might embarrass them, but there are people in here who know how much I thank them for what they do. He's my best friend now. That's really great. One thing, the bereaved. Last week we had our 6th annual Green Pie Addiction Conference. It's really important they have recovery too, and we help them find it. And a lady wrote, "Thank you so much for the gift of kindness, empathy, and the ability to share my story in an environment that was safe and non-judgmental. The conference was emotive, moving, and full of motivated, inspirational people. I was blessed being able to attend, thank you. It was a day that I could share my brother's memory without feeling judged. And knowing that no one would have the thought or desire to describe him as being just a dirty junkie. That deserved a tie, because he didn't. And yesterday was the first day from his death that I felt his memory was embraced and his plight fully understood. He became real again. His laughter, his smile, his memory, his journey will never be frowned upon again. He was an amazingly strong, inspirational man that society misunderstood and judged. I wish I knew about DrugFam before I lost him. It was a pleasure meeting such a motivated, inspirational group of people from your charity. My recovery from losing him can now begin. So we're passionate to support the bereaved." One entry that came in that didn't get a prize, but I love it, is this from a prisoner in Holloway. She simply said, "There will always be another tomorrow, as bright as this, so stay drug-free." Addiction. Families need support and recovery too. Good things happen at DrugFam. Thank you.